1. My grandma and grandpa live on a farm in the rural Midwest. My grandpa was actually born on the farm, and so was his father before him. The land has been in our family for well over 100 years. Over the past 10 to 15 years, our family has had various experiences at the farm that are hard to explain. First, I should explain that the homestead portion of the farm has 2 houses on it, along with the barn, machine shed, etc. The newer, smaller house was built by my grandpa when he married my grandma, and they raised their family there. Probably 25 yards away from the house is the bigger, older house. This house is where my grandpa was born and grew up, as well as my great-grandpa Corbin. My mom recalls taking dinner over to her grandparents each evening, especially after my great-grandma passed away and my great-grandpa Corbin was living on his own. Corbin was one of the kindest people I've known. He always wanted to take time to talk to people, and I remember he would always have those wafer cookies when he would come to visit. He was an active man that lived at the farm until he was in his 90s. Eventually, he was moved to a nursing home in a nearby town for a few years, until he passed away at the age of 94. Shortly after he passed away, my grandpa thought he heard his dad, Corbin, yelling his name. I recently read that this is a common phenomenon after a loved one passes away. My grandpa was also reported seeing lights on in the old house. One of my uncles lived in the old house for a short time after Corbin died. He is a highly skeptical person, but admits that he often heard strange noises, and was once awoken by a loud bang. He was so startled that he actually grabbed his pistol and went to investigate. He found his basketball had fallen onto the floor from its usual place on the deep shelf. He wrote it off at the time, but admits that he sometimes wonders if it was his grandpa saying hello. The most startling encounters were had by my grandma and another uncle of mine. My great-grandpa Corbin loved to roam the farm and check on things. He did this until he moved to the nursing home. I can't count the number of times I remember watching him walking the grounds, with his cane in one hand and a handkerchief in the other. On separate occasions, they both saw a man in overalls and a flannel shirt, a very familiar outfit, walking around outside at night. They were both frightened when they saw him, and initially didn't tell anyone about it. Eventually, my uncle mentioned it to my grandparents, and my grandma was shocked to hear he had a similar encounter to hers. She shared her story with him, and they agreed it was probably Corbin. They were confused about why the encounters were scary if it was Corbin, but chalked it up to being surprised at night. I have done some exploring of the house, but it is increasingly dangerous inside. I placed a recorder inside and left it there for 24 hours a couple of years ago, but never got around to reviewing whether it captured anything. I think partially out of fear of what I might hear. It's somewhat comforting to think it's just my great-grandpa Corbin chilling on the farm, the only home he ever knew. 2. I am a game master at an escape room. We have 5 rooms, and the place itself takes up 2 storefronts and a small shopping center. So generally, it's not very big. The neighborhood is pretty safe. There has never been an incident near the area. However, being there alone gives me the heebie-jeebies for a reason I can't explain. It's not even driving there or pulling into the parking lot that I get scared. It's actually walking inside. My chest gets tight and my whole body just fills with this undeniable sense of dread. Like my brain is telling me that something bad is going to happen. The feeling goes away almost entirely as soon as I walk out the door. The only place I feel remotely at ease is in the employee area, where I have camera views of the whole place. I feel totally fine coming and going from that area if other people are present, but as soon as I'm alone, I can't walk out of the employee area without having what I think are some sort of heart palpitations. When I'm the only person there during the day, the only sound that really travels through the place is the sound of the AC. Even with that bit of white noise, I still feel a sense of a looming, heavy silence. If I'm ever in a position of deafening silence like that, I usually try to play music or watch YouTube videos to distract myself from it. That almost always does the trick. However, here, no matter how loud I blast music or anything of the sort, that feeling that comes with the silence never goes. It still feels ominous. That's literally the best way I can explain it, and I apologize if that doesn't make much sense. The pièce de résistance comes down when I reset rooms. I'm always even more on edge when I have to go into any of the escape rooms to put them back together. However, it's the most prominent when I have to reset one of our horror-themed rooms. There's nothing strikingly scary about it in my opinion, save for a lot of creepy photos and writings on the wall. The ambience is meant to be spooky, but is nothing compared to what I've seen at Halloween Horror Nights, or even other similar scary-themed rooms. I'm a nervous sweater, and any time I have to reset the room alone, I break into a cold, nervous sweat. Even if I was freezing just moments before, because I'm also blasting the AC, I never cease to start anxiously sweating like a pig. It stops as soon as I walk out and head back to the employee area. But then I just go back to being standard nervous, until I leave for the day. There's also a couple smaller things, like at the end of the night, I'm perpetually nervous about turning off the lights. I don't like the dark, but I'm normally okay shutting off lights and easily walking out of the darkened area. At work, I feel the need to flee the darkened area in a haste as soon as I shut the lights off. The dread I feel skyrockets as soon as the lights turn off, once again. This feeling vanishes once I leave the place entirely. It also doesn't matter what time of day it is either. I used to think that I only felt this way because it was nighttime. I used to only work nights. But when I started working during the day, I always felt exactly the same. Which indicates the source of my fear is not what's happening outside, but what's inside. Thing is, I don't know what the inside thing is. That one spooky room definitely contributes, but it doesn't explain why I feel the way I feel, even when I'm not inside resetting it. Is there a chance this could maybe be chalked up to something paranormal? Is there a chance I'm just a fraidy cat and blowing it all out of proportion? I don't know. I should also mention that one of my coworkers dabbles in some witchcraft. I believe there is something off about the place. Maybe what she said has had some sort of placebo effect on me. My skeptic boyfriend, who also works there, has also said a few times that the place might be haunted. However, I would chalk that up to him joking and take that with a grain of salt. I know things are very rarely actually hauntings too. But he concedes that the one spooky room is indeed spookier in feel than it probably should be, which is something. Not a lot, but something. I'm posting this to see what my fellow paranormal friends might make of this. Please let me know your thoughts, and thank you all in advance. Edit. I just found out from my coworker who dabbles in witchcraft that her ex-girlfriend, who also practices witchcraft, saged the place 3 times. I don't know if that adds or subtracts anything, but I felt it was important info. 3. In the beginning years of my parents' marriage, it was normal to talk of wanting kids. They had never imagined themselves without a small human to care for, and it was a dream they both had anticipated for most of their adult life. So when they became settled in their marriage and decided it was time to try for kids, it was devastating how hard it seemed to be. Through 7 miscarriages and plenty of strain on their relationship, they were on and off of antidepressants and anxiety medication, trying to heal from losing their babies while still holding on to the hope they would one day have someone who was 2 equal parts of them. So when they found out they were pregnant with me, they said it would be the last time they tried. It was too much emotionally. And it seemed endless each time they had to attend another funeral with a casket so small. After the septum in my mother's uterus was finally detected after years of being overlooked, I was born in the summer of 1999. They were so happy, and they tell me all the time I am their miracle baby. But I have always been saddened by the fact that I could have had older brothers and sisters, and how much I miss them despite not knowing them at all. I've always wanted siblings. I don't remember this story, but my dad sure does. He still tells me it gave him the chills. I also like to believe it gave him peace. Anyway, from what I was told, I was playing in my room with a few of my toys as my parents were unloading the trunk from the grocery store trip. As my dad went back and forth with handfuls of bags, he could hear me talking out loud in my room, and it seemed as if I was having a conversation with someone. I think I was about 4 or 5, so it wasn't exactly uncommon to have an imaginary friend. but I had never mentioned anything of the sort before. After everything was taken inside, he came to my room and asked me who I was talking to, so he could maybe see if these friends had a name. I didn't look up from my toys as I simply told him I was playing with Christopher and Chelsea. Those were two of the babies that were named that had unfortunately never made it to term. Like I said, I was young, and my parents waited until I was mature enough to tell me about the miscarriages, much less the names of the children. I had no idea at the time. Those were the only two that were named because the others passed away so early it was painful to give them more of an identity. I think about it a lot, because I had no clue of their names or that my parents struggled so deeply with their children. Although I don't remember, I get the chills when thinking of it. And to this day I believe they are my guardian angels. 4. My girlfriend lives with her parents in a home that they built. Bear with me as I try to explain this. On the top level of her house there are 4 rooms. Her parents' room, her bathroom. Parents have one in their room, so she gets the other. And a spare bedroom where her now deceased grandfather lived before he passed away a couple of years ago. Her house has always had weird vibes, shadows that move across doors, people in the corner of your eye, and weird unexpected cold spots in random but consistent locations. All these things I have considered easy to write off since I don't consider myself a skeptic, but I am not anxious to go out looking for anything paranormal either. The way the top floor is laid out, you can see the spare bedroom's doorway and her bathroom mirror if you keep the door ajar. In this case it was. I was brushing my teeth while she was downstairs getting water for us two, nothing unusual. I got an overwhelming sense that I was being watched. Something that happens in her house, but I have never felt anything quite like this. I stopped brushing and looked up, and there in the mirror was someone staring back at me from the spare bedroom door. I thought it was just my mind playing tricks on me, so I continued brushing and looked up a few seconds later, and he was still there. He was an older-looking man in a flat cap and plaid pajamas. I turned to look over my shoulder, and there was absolutely no one in that doorway. After confirming with her that no one else was even on the same floor as me when this happened, her parents were watching a movie downstairs, I am left with no idea who this could have been. I spoke to her mom the next day, and she claims her father never wore anything like that, and didn't quite match the description of what I saw either. I don't think she really believes me. Does anyone have any thoughts on this? 5. This story happened about 13 or 14 years ago in my home country, Dominican Republic. I'm 30 now, so it was a while ago, but I've never been able to get it out of my head. It was spring break, Semana Santa, or Holy Week as we call it, and a group of friends and I went up to one of my friend's dad's house in the mountains. This is a town called Costanza, and it's the highest settlement in the country, sitting at 1,200 meters, around 4,000 feet. The house is a bit higher up, as it's located roughly 45 minutes from town, going straight up a mountain. It's the highest house in the area. It was around 5 or 6 for us, and we'd been hanging out for a few days up there, just having fun, barbecuing, playing pool, and having a few beers. On the 3rd or 4th day, we were all tired since we spent the day walking and horse riding. At around 10 p.m., everyone was cold except for my friend, son of the owner of the house, and I. We'd been pals for a while, and had been there before a handful of times. We always used to stay up late and hang around on the terrace, deck, talking about random stuff. We had already been out there for a while on these reclining patio chairs, and were looking up at the sky and literally counting shooting stars. They're so common up there, it became a sort of game for us. Suddenly, a huge, when compared to other stars, white circular light appeared in the sky. I really don't know how to describe the size, but I want to say it looked like 10 or 20 times the size of a regular star or a faraway airplane light. It didn't appear to be close. In fact, it looked like it was very far. The light just sat there, completely still. We asked each other if we were seeing the same thing, but didn't talk much after. It felt entrancing, and we both fell silent looking at it for about a minute. Out of nowhere, this light just starts bouncing around the sky at an incredible speed over a huge distance in the sky. The best way I can describe it is that it moved like the ball in Pong, the old school video game, inside what looked like a defined area, like a square or rectangle. This bouncing went on for 30 seconds or so, and then just disappeared. No trace of the light whatsoever. Nothing. Now here's the weirdest part. We immediately felt sleepy. We were actually dozing off in a matter of seconds. I don't remember who said we should go to sleep, or if any of us actually said it, but we stood up and went to our rooms. That night I had the most vivid and realistic dream I've ever had, and that's what keeps me awake at night. I remember being on a spaceship, moving on top of a river. I never felt scared or in danger. I never saw anyone or anything else, but I felt a presence there with me. I was standing in the front part of the ship, in front of a huge window, just looking out. We were moving slowly on top of this river, flying or floating, and it looked like the river was coming to an end, like a waterfall. When we reached the end, we kept on flying, and I could see this amazing view, just tons of waterfalls, and each had structures built on the rivers. It looked like a futuristic city built on these rivers and the surrounding lands. It was amazing, truly amazing. I didn't see much else, but one of the most bizarre things is that I heard or felt numbers. It was a long sequence which I think were coordinates or something similar that they were trying to tell me. I woke up and I still remember those numbers, similar to when you wake up and remember a dream very vividly, but forget almost instantly. I stood up dazed and confused and went looking for something to write, but I forgot them before I could do anything. A lot of years have gone by and I'm still convinced these beings were trying to tell me where they are. I'm not sure why they needed to tell us, human beings, where they are, or why they chose me, but I really believe it. I've never had any other paranormal, ghost abductions, or otherworldly experiences, so this one has really stuck over the years. I just wanted to share my experience and, hopefully, find others who've had similar ones. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Paranormal Stories, episode 171. I have now reached the point in these marathon recording sessions where I have forgotten what day of the week it is. I think it's Tuesday. Could be Monday. No, it's Tuesday. Okay. Almost Wednesday. I'm choosing to take that as a good sign, because usually that means, by the time that happens, it means I'm so well into the work, I just don't know where or when I am. Well, I know where I am. I'm in my bedroom/recording studio. Let's be generous and call it a recording studio. Well, if I'm judging this right, by the time this particular video goes up, it will be the 28th, so it'll be well after Christmas Day. I hope the holiday period has been good to you. We are not far away from New Year now. That puts us at New Year's Eve will be on this coming Tuesday. Well, I hope nobody's working and that you can have very nice time with friends and family, or a nice time on your own if you're not very fond of company. Nothing wrong with spending time on your own. And if you do have to work, then bless you and thank you very much. You make it so that everyone can have a nice, pleasant time, and if needed, that they can get help should it be required. I think it's easy to forget those hard-working folks in like the emergency services, people stuck in hospitals, fire departments, police officers, all the kind of thankless jobs. And especially this time of year, I'm sure a lot of them would prefer to be with their friends and loved ones, but they give that up. And it's not that they're not getting paid, but it's still a sacrifice nonetheless. So thanks and appreciation to all of you folks. Speaking personally, I'm fueling my recording sessions right now with cans of Rockstar, and something I buy at no other time of the year is Madeira cake, which is very nice, but literally it's those family traditions. You don't know where they start. Probably goes back generations, but you learn them from your parents, they learn them from their parents or whoever else. And so Madeira cake and shortbread. Those are things, although I do occasionally buy shortbread at other times of the year. but I always make sure I get them both at Christmas and New Year. Not to say I save them for Christmas Day, I'll get them at some point, usually midway through December, and then they're there to be used throughout that month. Okay. Right, that's enough ramble freezer, I think, for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.